So, it's about 20 hours since we glued this up. I guess we've got to now take the clamps off and see what we're left with. By the way, you're going to have to forgive me slightly, I've reverted to camera audio as my little sound recorder, the Zoom H1, it's decided it won't turn on anymore. And it's probably, what, 3 months old, being used once every 2 weeks or something like that, so yeah, take from that what you will. Anyway, never mind, let's see what we're left with. I should probably point out one of these sash clamps here, or trigger clamps, I actually squeezed it so hard I broke the handle on it as well, which is nice. Really do need to invest in some more clamps. I'll definitely have to do that before I go gluing any tops on or anything. So, what are we left with? Well, obviously there's some excess glue there to tidy up. To be honest with you, the overall result is fairly shoddy, if I'm honest. The wood is perfectly flush here on the front, but as we move towards the top, up here, there's definitely a ridge of about maybe 1/4 of a millimetre, and that's down to the fact that the wood wasn't perfectly flat when we put it together. There's no visible gap, so I'm sure that can be sanded down to make it flush, but that will impact the book matching, which, to be fair, with the planing and everything, we've already kind of ruined anyway. Still looks good though, still looks like a nice flame top, so that's really not the end of the world. It's just, you know, not up to probably the high standards of a professional luthier, that's all. It feels solid. Round the back though, I get a little bit more worried. You can actually see a gap, which means when I put these boards together, I've clearly not squared the ends very well. That's obviously because I'm not very experienced in doing that kind of thing, but there is a definite slight gap there, which means the contact between the two pieces of wood isn't as good as it can be. It's probably best illustrated on that end there. You can see the front edges are together, but then as you get towards the back there's a little bit of a gap. I don't really know what to do about that. I mean, I could give it a bit of a strength test and see if I can break it apart with my bare hands and say, well, if it stays then it's strong enough. Let's give it a go, and then you can watch me cry. That actually feels pretty strong. Okay, here's the plan. I think we've got to persevere with this, because I could go buying more bits of wood or trying to fix it all day long, and I think we've just got to go with the mantra that I repeat at the start, which is the first guitar is not going to be perfect. We just need to get it as workable as we can. I think what I'm going to do is try and level these boards as best as I can, because if you remember, I need to get it flat enough so that it will sit on top of there without leaving a gap, and at present it's definitely not that flat. Now, if I had something like, say, a drum sander, I could achieve that in probably about 30 seconds. I do not have a drum sander, and I'm not that great with a plane either, but I think I'm probably going to have to use a combination of the plane and sanding to see if I can get that usably flat. Let's just clean this up a bit first. Okay, so we're not too bothered about the top being perfectly flat, because after all that's going to get carved anyway, but we need to get the bottom flat. It doesn't need to be square with the ground necessarily, but it does need to be flat. Now, I think what I might have to do is try sharpening my little block plane, get it as sharp as I possibly can, and see if it's going to cut through that. Did I say block plane? I meant jack plane. Is this definite cupping in the centre going along here. So I've been at this for a little while now with the sander, and as you can imagine I'm getting nowhere fast. I've got a real predicament because I've only got so many tools to work with. I've got the plane, which is just definitely not cutting into the grain that way. I could sand by hand, which probably will go about as fast as it did with the random orbital, but leave me a lot more tired, and then I'm kind of out of tools. As I say, a drum sander would be the ideal thing, but I don't have one and I'm not going to be able to get one anytime soon. I think the only thing I can think to do for now is to maybe cut off some of the excess material on this board and see what we're left with, so that I'm not making more work for myself thinning down wood that I'm not actually going to use. So let's do that. Alright, so I've cut a little bit of excess off. If I lay this down on top and spin it round, let's see if we can see any gaps. I expect we can. Yeah, so small gap here. Small gap here, small gap here. So it's definitely about... So we definitely got a kind of a concave thing going on, and it's definitely about taking off the high points on the extremities here to try and get it more level. Let's try and persevering with the sander a little bit more. Frank has just pointed out to me that we do actually have a different sander. but I don't know whether switching it up to that is going to make any difference. I'll try, well, let's have an experiment. I'll try with the random orbital again, and then we'll have a try with this. Belt sander would probably be the best out of all the sanders, but I don't have one. So that's definitely having an effect. I'm curious to try and see if the other sander makes much difference though. Certainly feels like that one's making a bit more sawdust. It's harder to work with, so I might have to glue the work down again. I am making progress, it's just pretty slow. Alright, so sit rep. If I put a straight edge across where I've been sanding, and to be fair, it's probably only had a little bit of sanding, that's definitely better than it was, but I still need to do more. If I'm going to do a lot more sanding, especially with the power tools, I definitely need my dust mask, and that is currently at home, so I need to effectively leave it there and come back, otherwise I'm going to be choking. I'm willing to take advice if anyone's got any bright ideas on how I could get that flatter without spending too much money. As I've already said, ideally a drum sander would be the thing that would do it pretty much instantly. The only thing I can think of is if I made a router sled, if I got like say 2 square bars or something like that, ideally made out of metal, and put them either side and then put my router base across with some reinforcement, then I'd be able to move the router across the top of the entire material and level it off at an even depth. That's the only kind of cheap way I can think of doing it without putting too much elbow grease into it, but I think for the time being I'm going to persevere and try and do it with the sander. I think that will do it. I think it will just take some time. It might be a very boring video, the next one. It might just be hours and hours of sanding, but can't really be helped. What I am going to do, since I've got a little bit of sawdust made here, just keeping with the theme of this guitar, I think, I'm probably just going to run some dust and glue into the crack there just to try and fill it up a little bit. It's quite weird actually, you know, I mean, I know we've kind of, I don't know if damaged is the right word, we've kind of done away with the book matching almost on this, but I think the flaming on the back side is actually better, to be honest. But anyway, so I'll get that quickly glued up and then we'll tidy up for the day, have a sleep on it, maybe take some advice from the lovely chaps over on the Crimson Guitars forum or something like that. But I think that's the way we're going to go for now. Just doing this for a little bit of extra strength really. Alright, so I'll set that to one side and tidy up. As I say, we'll have a little sleep on it, see if we think continuing with the sanding method is going to be the best way to go. It's been a little bit, I don't know if disheartening is the right word to use. Obviously when you have a clear plan in mind of what you want to do, it's a little bit frustrating that you know, it's not Lego bricks, everything's not even, everything's not just fresh ready to use, it's all natural materials, so there's quite a skill really in just actually preparing it all, getting it all perfect and ready to use. That's probably the hardest bit to all this really, but I'm sure we'll get better at it as time goes on. So let's end the video there. As always, like and subscribe. Please do comment below if you have any ideas about what you think I maybe should be doing. I'm certainly open to suggestions at this point. I just, as long as I can remind people that the budget is pretty low at this point in time. But other than that, happy to take advice. Until next time, hopefully when the shed's creaking a little bit less. Yep, you heard me. Goodbye.